Hello, everybody. We are Nerd Initiative, and we are back with a nine-part series discussing every single episode in She-Hulk. Today, we are She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Let me correct myself. And today, we are discussing the first episode of the series. We are joined by myself, Donovan Rose, at the Donovan Rose on TikTok and Instagram.
I am Jeremy and JJ's comic stuff pretty much everywhere on social media.
Mickey, the voice of CWK, or cell phone wallet keys, as known in most places.
Perfect. So yes, we are all people who work here at, well, not work, it's not a job, who contribute here to Nerd Initiative. So we are all really excited here to discuss this. With this series, there's going to be different people every week, may not be the same people, and it's just going to be a fun little discussion on each episode. So I'm really excited to talk about this episode today with you guys. So let's go around. We'll just discuss overall what we thought of the episode as a whole. So firstly, I didn't read comics, so for me, this was just a complete breath of fresh air for the MCU. I mean, we had Miss Marvel before this, which was also pretty fun compared to Moon Knight, which was super dark and everything like that. Still fun, but Miss Marvel was kind of a joyride, and I feel like this is going to be kind of like the same, easy going. Not, I mean, we'll see. There's nine episodes, so there's going to be a lot. But I loved it. The humor, the fourth wall breaking. I love that we got the origin story of her powers right away instead of waiting like four episodes or seeing it at the end or something. We got everything right away. And she kind of made a joke at that too, like in the beginning, like, oh, you're not going to be able to focus until I tell you, which is true. So I'm glad that we got that out of the way. But I think overall, it sets up a lot going forward, especially with Hulk, because we saw his attitude and everything way different than we did throughout the MCU so far. So I'm excited to see how his character develops throughout this show as well. But yeah, I'm excited to see what the next eight episodes have in store.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, I thought it was the first episode was a whole lot of fun. I do feel like they kind of rushed through the first episode, but I feel like that's just because they wanted to get it out of the way.
Hmm.
I mean, the first episode of any show is really world building and story building. So, I mean, it's to be expected. But other than that, I loved it.
Yeah. I like the frantic pace. I thought it was way different than what we're used to, where we get like a whole lot of episodes of build up. So it was really nice for me. I didn't read a whole lot of She-Hulk comics either. I have recently, um, but I loved everything they did. I I loved getting more of what Hulk was going through or Bruce was going through during the blip. Is more in depth with his relationship with Tony, um, and yeah, just seeing how well she could control her powers immediately was so awesome, and explaining everything she goes through in her life and how she's much different than Bruce. I loved everything about the episode. It was great.
Now, Jeremy, did you read the She-Hulk comics at all, or were you going into this kind of blindly with She-Hulk as
I
well?
went into this somewhat blind. I right before, like a few days ago, I went back and read like the first five issues of She-Hulk just to kind of get it in my head of what the original story was and kind of compare in my brain because I'm not one of those people who cares about comic book accuracy, but I'm always interested to see how they adapt it and which route they go down. And I think they did great. It's a way more modernized origin story, and it makes it a little bit more realistic because, in my opinion, Bruce Banner in real world would not just inadvertently give her blood
Yeah.
knowing it's gonna screw her up like that. You know what I'm saying? Without her consent. But the way they did it as like an accident, her getting cut in the car crash, and then it kind of leaking out of him, like I loved it.
Yeah, no, so in the comics, he just essentially did like a blood transfusion for her, essentially, or
Yeah, essentially what happens is she is shot by mobsters, and he has to give her a blood transfusion because she's pretty much bleeding out, and she wakes up in the hospital and hulks out.
oh, okay. Yeah, this one is definitely much more MCU Bruce Banner. He's like,
Hmm.
no, no, like I'm bleeding, like get away. We know that he doesn't really like being the Hulk, so he has that empathy towards it and is like warning her. So yeah, I liked seeing how she, like Mickey, you were saying, how she has so much control over the powers, and Hulk definitely is jealous, and he even states
Yeah.
that, and it's really interesting to see him kind of show off and try to one up her every single time, and he's just like throws the rock, and he's just like, oh, I wanted to just show you how it's done, and I just think it's really interesting to see, and I wonder if that's going to come into play, like not him being like an enemy or anything, but potentially him and her just maybe hulking it out for a little bit because he is jealous and upset that she has this control and is potentially stronger than he is. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Um, I I think it would be interesting. I like the dichotomy. Well, I guess we'll call it a dichotomy, but of Hulk talking about its two personalities. He's struggling with someone else, whereas Jen just has the one. But what if she doesn't? What if at some point both Hulks kind of come out, and that's when it's just a a fight, like a straight up
Right.
Hulk fight. Yeah, that
No,
would
that would
be
be crazy.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because the fight they had in I guess the training montage of the movie, you could call it, for all those people who are like gonna be mad that, oh, we need a training montage. You got it in the first episode. So, but it was much more of like a brother sister, big cousins kind of fight. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
They weren't really trying to hurt each other. They were more just trying to irritate each other.
They have a great
Um,
relationship. I love that. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. They got good chemistry in it too. Like it's amazing.
they do. This phase four has been so heavily family dynamic focused.
Yeah.
And I love that we get to see all the different aspects of family. And, Mark Spector, we saw his not so great side of family. And Kamala, we got the really nice, deep, family that really cares and loves and supports her. And it's really interesting to see, Bruce Banner with family because we've never really seen it. He's kind of been a loner throughout the entirety of the MCU. So it's really cool to see that he has family and how he reacts with her, and it's a chill relationship. Like I feel like he's kind of like the cool cousin. I'd like to be his cousin, and obviously, I don't know. It's just interesting to see where this relationship goes because I feel like there's definitely going to be some pull at the strings and testing of their relationship throughout this show. And I don't know if it's gonna end on a good term or, I don't know how it's gonna end, but we have 8 more episodes to find out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But another thing that there were a lot of like Easter eggs and callbacks to previous MCU projects. Like we saw right away with when we got to the island, we saw the Ultron from the Age of Ultron, the Century Bot, the head thing. Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
can't think of it. Whatever it's called. We saw that he had like a collectible, and then he had the helmet that he got when he went to Sakaar in Ragnarok. And so it's really interesting to see he almost has like an Odin's collection room in
Yeah.
his
Yeah, it's like
little
his own little
island.
trophy case, you
Yeah.
know? Like,
So I wonder what else he has in there before they kind of took it out, hulking out.
well, and the fact that he knew exactly what kind of spaceship that was that came in and attacked them, like, so I'm really excited to see where that goes. Because I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's the Hulk's son. I'm like, I really doubt they're going to go that route.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean,
Just
I mean,
because
I
they
could
haven't
see.
ever even hinted at a relationship that he's had other than with Nat. And we know that didn't work because,
No.
right.
Right.
So, I mean,
It kind of just like glossed over that part really quick. Like, oh, somebody just probably delivering a message from Sakara, and I'm like, that seems like a big deal, man. It was just like a
right.
real.
Don't like that not normally happen. Like,
Literally, they
Like, how
like
many
took you
times?
off the road. Like that seems like a pretty important thing. And they
How
and
just
many
they
like
just
times?
left you there. They didn't try to help. They didn't do nothing. So was
Yeah,
that
yeah,
intentional? Was that
yeah.
accidental? What happened there? Like,
How many times have they tried to deliver a message? Like,
for real, how many cars have you totaled? Like
right, right. He seemed pretty nonchalant about it, in all honesty. He's like, I got to figure out what that's all about. And then he just goes off into the next conversation.
yeah,
and then he's like, you're going on a multi-year journey. So what, you're going on this 15-year journey, you're gonna figure this out in 15 years after you train her how to be a Hulk. Like
Right.
yeah,
but no, I mean I could definitely see where people are getting the, potential kid Hulk. Is it hulking? Is hulking his kid or who's his kid? Is there's Did you guys read the comics? Do you know who did
I
you
have
have a
not read
specific
enough
kid?
Hulk comics to be an authority on this topic. So
I can't remember his child's exact name, but Hulkling I don't think is related to him.
Okay.
I
not
want to say like
directly anyway. I think he's like a nephew maybe or something like
mm,
that. I could be completely wrong. So
No, no, your guess is just as good as mine. That's why I was asking. But because I feel like, potentially he could come into play at some point because, we have the Maximoff twins and they have their relationship in the comics. So I feel like he could come into play at some point. But I do see where people could get the idea of a potential kid from Sakaar because during the time of Hulk, he doesn't remember and what
that's
happened
true.
on
He was the
Ragnarok.
Hulk
So,
for two
so
years.
who he
So
could have
I didn't even think of
potentially,
that.
yeah. So not remember. And so, who knows that I could see where that possibility could possibly come into play. But this also sets up the question, like he did seem so nonchalant about it. Has he been actively communicating with Sakaar? Like, or
And they
so
just accidentally ran him off the road. But if that's the case, like, why wouldn't you stop and help?
Exactly. So
uh,
it's really interesting to see like where Sakaar is going to come into play. Has he not been in contact with them? Is this the first, or have they actively been in contact? So I definitely feel like we're going to get a lot. Well, I hope we get more answers to that during this because that definitely raises a lot of questions. We
I'll
haven't
say
seen
because
anything from
especially like you
Sakaar.
can't leave Sakaar, right? That's like the
No,
whole idea of the planet.
yeah,
Like you
yeah.
can't leave once you're there. They're only Hulk, only Thor was able to do that with Hulk because they had the right ship and yada yada yada.
They went Hell's Anus or whatever the thing.
Right. The
Yeah.
devil's anus.
Yeah, devil.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, now that you mention it, that is really interesting. So I wonder how that's going to come into play. So we definitely need answers on that before the end of this
Like a
show.
messenger from Sakaar. Like I didn't think that was a thing. I thought nobody left there, right? Like
I'm kind of hoping that somehow leads to like a World War Hulk situation. That would
that's what
be
a lot of people are thinking it's going to lead to, but I don't think they've got the right idea of how though. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? I think they all are thinking it's going to be Hulk's son and something's going to happen with that. And I'm like, I think it's just going to be like a retaliation type thing.
yeah.
Well, Mark did say that, he's all for it. He signed him up. He is up for the World War Hulk whenever they say. So I
He's not going to leave that role until they drag him out of it.
no, I mean,
Why
absolutely not.
would you though? I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
that's a dream gig for him right there.
So this episode so we started out with her in the present going prepping for her closing arguments for we don't even know the case yet, but we see the
No,
whole montage of how she became She-Hulk, her training, everything like that, and then it cuts back to her walking into this courtroom to give these closing arguments for this case. Still don't know who it is, but we do see the opposing attorney is the guy from the trailers. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but he's the guy from the trailers who goes to her and talks about starting the um like the bureau for the super like coming to be an
Yeah.
okay.
attorney for the superheroes. He's the one who so I don't know if this is where he notices, that she's She-Hulk and she just stopped this girl from the court thing. So maybe this is where he initially sees her.
Did
And
anybody catch who that was that busted in the courtroom?
well, that
Because
was
I didn't know off the
Titanium.
top of my head.
that was Titanium. I don't know
Yeah.
who she is or how she comes into play. But yeah, I know that she is one of the main villains in this series. So this
Okay,
isn't
just
the end
because
of
the
her.
costume threw me off because I wasn't sure. I think it's different than what was in the comics.
Oh yeah, big difference. But that was Titania. I think that's how you pronounce her name.
Hmm.
Okay.
Um, one of her adversaries, and she has a lot of connections with Doctor Doom. So I don't know if maybe we'll get something
Mm.
in
Yeah,
there.
and there's a
I don't
lot
know.
of like speculation with him coming to play in Wakanda Forever. So who knows? Maybe we could see some sort of Doom. Maybe not. Maybe we'll get his reveal in Wakanda Forever, but him mentioned in
That's
here or
what I'm thinking,
something.
like a post-credit scene or a mid-credit scene or something. We'll get him.
Well,
Yeah.
we get post credit scenes in at least in the first four episodes. From those who have seen the first four episodes of this, we get a post credit scene in every episode of the first four. So I mean, the first one was it doesn't really add to the story, but it was a really good
But
post
it was
credit.
funny.
Yes, it was.
I was
It was one of
rolling.
my favorite in the MCU so far, honestly. But I'm really interested to see now because we saw her Hulk out, and I think, well, I know we obviously her close friends knew, but I feel like this is the first time that the public has seen her
Hmm.
Hulk
Yeah.
out because they seemed really shocked in the courtroom.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm interested to see how this goes into play now because she didn't want to be a superhero. She didn't want to have that role. She just wanted to be the lawyer. So
And it literally just got thrust upon her without any warning. So
literally. So I'm really interested. I wish we had at least 2 episodes right away because the people who went to the screening and got the screeners got 4, and we have to wait 3 weeks to see the rest of those. I feel like that's so unfair. I
now,
need more
what are
now.
your guys' thoughts on the couple? Like, I'm not gonna name any names, but there was a few people I saw that got invited to that premiere, and then as soon as they were out of that premiere, still in their outfits, were making horrible review videos for the show.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even see that.
I was just like, you guys are still in your tux. You're not even gonna wait to change, like
No,
before you
that's
start making bad, like negative
No.
comments about it, like. And it's fine if you don't like a show, you know what I'm saying? Everybody's got their own opinion and own tastes. But when you start getting online and then start telling people not to go see something as soon as you leave the premiere that you just got invited to, it seems a little weird.
It is a
yeah.
little weird.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you don't have like valid arguments, if they're like, oh, it's too woke or blah, blah, blah. Like, if it's just those standard, not real valid arguments, they just want to be different or
Hmm.
everything like that. It's a female-led show, whatever. I just think that's so disrespectful in general because the hard work that goes into these shows, whether or not you like them or not, you can tell that it's of good quality, no matter
Right.
whether you like what's going on, you can tell that it's not just a shoddy show that was put together. This actually
Well,
was
and
worked
even if
on
it's
and
not the greatest quality in the world, someone still worked their butt off on that.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
And to just go and like, yeah, you can have your not like it and say why, but to go and just completely bash it so disrespectfully, like this is people's lives. This is their job. This is what they spend their whole
hmm,
lives working for. It's just, I just feel like, that's just uncalled for and unnecessary.
yeah, there's a way
Yeah.
to do a bad review without being toxic about it.
Yeah.
Hmm. I mean, I mean, and it can do change if you do it non-toxically. Look what we did for Sonic. Like we demanded
Yeah.
change and we got change. And I mean, we
And that
even
was
did
a
for
change worth
She-Hulk.
arguing for because let's all agree
Yeah.
the original design on Sonic was horrifying.
Although when we saw in Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, he was my favorite character in that whole movie. I want a whole ugly Sonic
Uh,
movie now, but
Oh yes, give me 5 episode show or something, like just
literally.
something.
Um, but no, and they even saw that a little bit with She-Hulk when the first trailers came out. Everybody was bashing the CGI, and I mean, it looks like
I
CGI,
think it just
yeah, but
wasn't done
it is,
yet.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it is. I think I have no really issues with it. I think it looks fine. Um, I'm excited. I mean, we didn't really get that much She-Hulk, and especially not like fighting. Like, I'm interested to see her fight different characters
Hmm.
that aren't Hulk, that aren't CGI characters, full CGI characters. So I'm
Right, like we
interested to
got that
see.
little tease in the courtroom at the end,
Right,
but
you're right, but I'm
that
yeah.
was a
So I'm
very that was a one hitter quitter right there.
and I'm excited to see the lawyer show, but I love lawyer shows, so I'm excited
Oh
to
yeah,
actually
so
see
it's
like
gonna
different
be
cases
great.
every.
Like it's actually gonna be like a funny, like action-packed lawyer show, which you don't
yeah.
get very often with any of those
No.
kind of shows. So it's always very serious and dark and
Yeah.
depressing, and but no, this looks like it's gonna be great.
Who do you hope to see? I mean, obviously, we're getting Daredevil, so we don't hope to see him. Who do you hope to see come in this show as like a cameo or something like that we haven't been teased at yet?
I feel like I know a lot of people say this for every single MCU movie, but I feel like so far this is the most likely one that we're going to see a quick 2-second glimpse of Deadpool somewhere. Just because of the fourth wall breaking, I feel like they're not going to be able to resist.
That's pretty good.
I could have like see him like reading a newspaper with like She-Hulk on the cover, and then him being like,
If I'm
"Really?"
wrong, I'm just
Like
joining
that's
a club of many people who've had the same exact thing. Like, so it is what it is. But
I mean, that would be when we do have Deadpool 3 coming out in the next couple of years. It would be a nice little like tease just to be like, "Hey,
and
I'm in
like,
the
he could be
MCU."
a client.
Exactly. Yeah. True. Or just like
Oh,
his name like on the client list. Like we could see like,
Right.
like
Wade
something
Wilson or
like
something,
yes, exactly. Because we know that he is gonna need a lawyer. Come on.
At some point, yeah. Come on.
I
Um,
think I think it would be cool to see. I know it would never happen in a million years, but just to see Spider-Man maybe just like swing by in the background of a scene or something in
See,
New
any
York.
show that takes place out on the West Coast, like, because that's where this is taking place, right out in Los Angeles. So I don't think we're
Oh,
probably going to
was
see
it? I
Spider-Man.
thought it
Yeah,
was
I'm
New York.
pretty sure. But any movie or show is set in New York, I'm always like, is he going to just swing by in the back? Like, are they going to show him in a
That would,
post credit somewhere? Like, but I think Sony's got a vice grip on
yeah.
that property right now. So if they're not making money off of it, I don't think they're going to allow the cameo.
I don't know who I would like to see. Quite honestly, I'm interested to see who they bring in because I know that they teased, was it Frogman? Did they tease?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm interested to see that
I feel
because
like he's definitely going to be a client.
because I feel like we're definitely going to get maybe like one new character per episode introduced like as a client and then different cameos, like small cameos throughout and references and things like that. But I'm interested to see who they really, because that really do set up. And then we saw the Johnny Blaze, or not the Johnny Blaze, the Ghost Rider
Yeah, it was a Johnny
poster.
Blaze
Yeah,
poster.
it was a Johnny Blaze. It wasn't okay. Yeah, we saw the Johnny Blaze poster for the in Wong when he was in the theater. That'll come up eventually. So I wonder if they're going to incorporate, that. Could he be a real person or is it just a movie? Or like, could he be a client for legal reasons? Who knows? But I'm just interested to see how they play in and who they all bring in just to possibly set up in the future of the MCU.
I think I'm such a dummy for not realizing it was on the West Coast. I don't know why I did that, but it, how cool would it be if we started getting like a setup for West Coast Avengers, like
That's what I've been thinking of for a
white
while
white
now.
we see White Vision. We haven't seen him. We don't know where he's at.
Yeah,
He could
no, we
show
haven't.
up. Hawkeye could show up. I mean, there's a lot of potential here to do something really cool with like a West Coast Avengers team.
Yeah, because Kate Bishop ends up out there at some point in the comics, I know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's definitely possible. I could definitely see it.
Yeah, that would be super
They could
cool.
have Ironheart go out there too.
Yeah, awesome.
And then just a huge mass like Avengers movie at the end where all the teams come together.
Yeah, that would be cool. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Start the petition right now.
Yeah.
But the last thing that I guess we talked about pretty much everything what we want to see, everything that we saw. But one thing that really everybody's talking about is Steve Rogers. The age-old question. I thought it was really interesting how this kind of played in throughout the whole episode. She was just nagging him and nagging him, and then finally at the end, and not even at the end, in the post credit, he was like, "You know what? I've had enough of this." It really is true that if you nag somebody enough, they will just tell you to not make you knock it off. But it was really funny. I think this is one of my favorite MCU credit scenes. And it answers a question that a lot of people probably did truly have because nobody really knew. Everybody thought that he was. And it's really interesting to kind of have that real life memes and real fan questions answered in this show or hinted at or tricked at, played at in the show. I think it's really meta at times, but I love it.
Kevin Feige's the biggest troll of them all.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting though, like you were saying though, Jeremy, about the guys coming out and saying things about it. Those are the exact guys that Jen is talking about in this show. The misogynistic, tool bags who essentially just are not good representations of the Marvel fans.
No, but because they have these humongous followings, then they get invited to all this stuff, even if they're. I just don't understand the logic of it. If somebody's going to bash every project you put out, why would you invite them to stuff?
Yeah.
I guess that's the part I don't really understand.
Yeah, I don't know, especially I mean, especially with this phase, it's you can see where these projects really do touch people and where they hit
Hmm.
people and people can relate to them. So you know that it's hitting the right audiences. So when these shows get reviewed bombed or negative reviews by these either these old men or these young guys, these who don't really understand or want to understand different cultures or, female-led things, yeah, that has a negative impact, I think, on the right now in the moment because they have these big followings and in the moment it's trending. But I think in the long run, in 6 months, in 5 years down the road, we can look back and these shows and these movies in phase four are going to be some of the most impactful of the
Oh,
entire MCU,
100%.
at least so far. And it's going to come back to where people appreciate it a lot more than we really thought, and these people who are bashing it now will probably appreciate it a lot more too and realize, oh wow, this really is a lot more than just, billionaire philanthropist playboys,
Right, because
who
I feel like phase one through three played off of like young young straight male fantasies
hmm you
about
know
what being a superhero
super
would be, and then
yeah,
this
Tony
is
Stark, Thor,
delving
Captain
much more
America.
into emotionally what it actually means to be one of these people. And I think
Yeah.
that's the thing that they're most uncomfortable with, because a lot of people like that don't know how to be emotional.
Yeah.
hmm and like you were saying, like you were talking about, like, relating to just the white, how everybody thought just the white man was the superhero, whatever like that. But now this relates to, I think this is going to bring a lot of more people into the MCU too,
Hmm.
because it's going to eliminate those toxic people. I mean, not everybody who is, but those toxicity of that people who think, oh, a superhero needs to be a white, strong male. This is going to bring in, and I think kind of overtake the MCU of people who realize,
And it's
superheroes
starting to
come from
happen
every
already.
culture. Exactly. And it's so nice to see, with Moon Knight, we had the Egyptian, and Kamala, we had Pakistani. I love that we're getting all these different cultures and learning about different things. In my discussion um, the other day with Anjali, we talked about the partition and how I had never heard of it until Miss
Well, because
Marvel. We
they
never
really
learned
didn't
about it
teach
in
it to us in
school.
school at all.
Right.
No, I felt bad.
Right.
I had to Google. I was like, was this a real thing or was this
Well,
something
it's
that
just like
Marvel
I
made up for
was
the show?
on a live with Amira one day. This was a few weeks ago, and I told her, I'm like, I'm glad that I get, I follow you, because as a straight white male, I was not taught about these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's good for me to learn because I want to understand everything. I don't want to go in blind, not knowing any of this, and then trying to talk about it and being wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I think that, and like you were saying, people in this app, this TikTok, all the social media brings all these different fans together because if I didn't have these social media, this TikTok, I probably wouldn't, I wouldn't know anything about what Amira talks about on hers. And at the heart of it all, it's Marvel. And it's
Hmm.
all this that brings everybody together. And it's really beautiful and it's really amazing. And I think that this phase is really showing just that Marvel really does bring people together from everywhere. And I'm excited to see where it goes from here. And I'm excited to see what She-Hulk has to bring. I'm excited that it's 4 or 9 episodes instead of 6
Yeah.
because we have, I mean, even though they're split up a little bit, like, shorter, I like the longer because, 6 weeks feels so short.
Yeah. And I
But
like the fact that they're not putting these shows out in like bingeable, you know what I'm saying? Because
mhm,
that way you don't have to watch all the episodes in one night and then try to catch up with all the content creation. Like with
Right.
Sandman, it's a great show, but they released it all at once. And I don't have 6 hours to sit down and watch a whole show like that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Yep.
and then you have to wait even longer because like Sandman, like those kinds of shows, they're so visually and so much goes into them that they
Mhm.
take so long to produce. If they did it like weekly, they would have, that shorter
That
amount
little
of time
buffer zone
between.
because
Yeah.
they could be showing the first episode while they're finishing the last episode. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right,
That's why I
exactly.
really love what Star Trek's been doing with Strange New Worlds, because it's they took it back to like a serialized style. So like how you'd have one complete story each episode rather than one huge long overarching story each season.
Hmm.
They're doing it like a beginning, middle, and end to each story every episode. They still all tie in together, obviously, but it completes a story arc in one episode. And there's like 12 episodes a season.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
And they do it the once a week. So, you've got like, if you're doing content on it, you've got 12 weeks worth of content to make.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Well, I don't really know what else to talk about. We've talked about pretty much everything. Let's really quickly sum up in 3 words or less what you thought of the first episode. Like 3 adjectives. Jeremy, you go first.
3 adjectives. Okay. How about this? I'll give you a 3-word phrase. Go watch it.
It's good.
That is good.
Oh boy. Entertaining. Um eye-opening, if that makes any sense,
Hmm.
about some things. And loving. Like there was a lot of love family in that. I like that.
Oh, that was a really good one. So of course I have to say it was smashing. But it was, oh gosh, I was too focused on you guys. I couldn't think. So yes, it was smashing. It was relevant. Um,
Mhm.
and it was refreshing. Smashing, relevant, refreshing.
I like that.
Yeah, we got it. Let
I
me
think
let
I think we got it.
Yes, we need to have Marvel and She-Hulk on Instagram quote all of us and put it on their Instagrams for the little quotes for the show for the reviews.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. But this is really exciting. I'm so glad that we got to talk about this. The episode just came out yesterday, so it's fresh, it's new. If you guys haven't seen it, I don't know why you're here because we kind of just talked about it and spoiled everything for you. Go watch it. But it is going to be over the next 8 weeks, every Wednesday night, Thursday morning, and we will be here every Friday, maybe changing the days a little bit, but we will be here over the course of the next 8 weeks. Some of us will be, some of us changing, but we will be here discussing this. So I'm glad that you guys were here to discuss this tonight. You guys have a great rest of your night and be sure to follow Nerd Initiative on all our socials.